We need a huge amount of money to improve things, and we're talking up to 70 million. So what would it be spent on, and how will we know these big contracts will be awarded fairly and properly?
Thank you very much. John, I'm going to ask you to answer that first.
No problem. If we look at the 70 million, and for simplicity's sake, we say it's a big sum of 40 million at the beginning, and then 30 million later on, and I'll come back to the 30 million. Initially, the 40 million will be broken down roughly into 18, 19 million on what I'll call public realm. So the streets, the highways, the grassed areas, the shrubbed areas. I know the steering group got a presentation last week on something called NVAC, which is a new refuse system which they think might work across the estate. We know we need to put a new roof on the wall. We know we need to put new windows in the wall, and that'll amount to another 7 or 8 million. We know we need to do lots to the district and group heating scheme. It's highly likely that very early on you'll get a new district and group heating scheme, which hopefully will look at the cost base and the cost that you have to pay on a regular basis. And then there are literally tens, if not hundreds, of smaller projects. The thing to stress about the spending of that 39-40 million is it really is in the hands of you, the tenants of Byker, to determine exactly what happens at a local level. And the steering group's really been at pains to say to in a sense, myself, don't go too fast on what needs to happen on the estate. We need to do this properly. It needs to be inclusive. People need to be part of that process and understand what actually will happen. The next 30 million will be spent, we think, from about year 20 onwards. And many of you may well have already had new bathrooms, new kitchens. Well, bathrooms and kitchens only last so long. And it's about how we then go back and build the funding so that we can go back in 15, 20 years' time, put new kitchens in, new bathrooms in, rewire as appropriate, and so on and so forth. So a really exciting time, I think.
The second part of your question, Herbie, was about fairness of awarding the contracts. Barry, would you just like to address that issue?
The Trust will be supported very, very closely by YHN, and technical support and financial support and input from others as well, including the Council. So that will be done properly and above board. And I think those assurances, both the capacity is there to help to make this a success, and we'll be keeping an eye on it so people that it's done properly as well.
Of course you can.
When the original estate was built, there was a lot of cowboy practices went on. It was, I mean, the lack of wall ties in the wall, the inferior pipe installed for the heating system. Now, the whole heating system has to be practically be renewed, and we want to make sure that we have qualified inspectors on everything that's being done on the estate, because the original inspection left a lot to be desired. It's got to be totally different this time. Whatever improvements are done, everything's got to be inspected to the nth degree to make sure there's no cowboy tricks, that you don't have to go back in a few years' time and renew something that should have been installed properly in the first place.
The Council has an audit committee which has independent members, and I sit on that. And one of the roles that we have is to look at things like the awarding of contracts. Are they fair? Are they good value for money? And I don't think that'll be any different in this. I mean, I rather think that if this trust happens, we may be looking at how it's run quite closely in the first few years. Nick, did you want to pick up?
Well, on the point about cowboys, the only cowboys who will be coming anywhere near will be at the Americana Festival across the road next month, I can guarantee that, Herbie. On the point about where the money's actually spent, whilst John has alluded to a lot of the big capital expenditure that's required, that's been identified through the numerous saturation of consultation we've had going on in Byker for the last 10 years, where we all know what the issues where they need to be addressed. So we're not taking the decisions away from local people. These decisions have been made by local residents over a number of years about what the initial priorities are. But there's still a huge raft of expense that will be invested into the estate, and it'll be based on the decisions of local residents. There'll be ongoing consultation, but finally, Herbie, you'll be having consultation where you think at the end of it there's some money, and it'll go in, and the decision you give will be the decision where the money goes.